Hi everyone, it's Rachel here. Welcome to this brand new episode of the Ditch the Diet podcast. Thank you very much for joining me for another episode. Sorry that there was no episode last week. I'm actually in the process of moving house and things are a little bit crazy, to say the least. So thank you very much for your patience, and sorry that there was no episode last week. So welcome to the Ditch the Diet podcast. This is a podcast for people all over the world who want to learn how to quit yo-yo dieting, change habits and start living a healthier lifestyle without restriction. So we want to help you say goodbye to food guilt, start improving your relationship with food, and ultimately take the steps that you need to take in order to quit dieting forever, and get your body confidence back. And we do this through the Ditch the Diet Academy. The Ditch the Diet Academy is a membership site that is your alternative to a lifetime of slimming clubs, where we will teach you these exact steps to learn how to quit dieting and improve your relationship with food. And you can check that out at ditchthedietacademy.com/join. If you're a long-term listener, I really appreciate you listening again over and over to all of the new episodes. Thank you so much. Please could you do me a little favour? It'll only take 2 seconds. Please could you hit the 5-star review button if you're listening on iTunes and leave me a little review. It would really help me so much to reach more people and I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you're a brand new listener, welcome to the show. I'm really glad that you found it and I'm sure this is going to become one of your favourite weekly podcasts. So in today's episode, I have a very special guest with me. Her name is Shahroo Izadi and she is a behavioural change specialist. Shahroo helps those who are frustrated with inability to change unwanted habits despite repeatedly resolving to do so. And we talk about how to change the way that you think and feel and behave when you have set yourself a goal, or there are habits that you want to change or habits that you want to break, or even new habits that you want to sort of instill into your life. We talk about this from a sort of weight loss and diet approach, obviously because we are the Ditch the Diet podcast and we want to help you to do that. And we answer the question of, I know what I should be doing, or I know what I need to do or want to do, but I can't seem to be able to do it. Shahroo has a absolutely amazing book called The Kindness Method. If you haven't heard of it, then you need to check it out. I will be back at the end of the podcast to tell you where you can have a look at that, and I think you will thoroughly enjoy this episode, so please sit back, enjoy the interview with Shahroo. All right.
So the first question you said was about how I got into this work.
So could you just tell me a little bit about what it is that you do and why you work in the field that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So after I finished studying psychology and psychosocial sciences, I went to get a placement as an assistant psychologist. And the place that I ended up being was at a substance misuse service run by the NHS in northwest London. Mm-hmm. And that's where I learned about addiction. And I learned how we treat addiction in the UK. And most importantly, I guess, I learned about the motivational tools that are used with people who want to stop taking drugs. Mm-hmm. And that's where I started becoming really interested. That's when I started becoming really interested in what it is that makes people want to change, what it is that enables people to change, and how to engage people even when they're resistant and they really don't believe in themselves. Mm-hmm. So I started becoming really interested in this, both academically and professionally, and kept working in substance misuse roles. Then I worked in a criminal justice role in East London at one point, and my job was to oversee the treatment of people who kind of didn't want to be in treatment.
Yeah.
And so that's where I really got to hone my skills in terms of how can you help people find an approach that works for them specifically and serves them specifically. Mm-hmm. And that's where I started really becoming absolutely fascinated with how I could start to share these tools and change them and help anyone with them. And then I went on to become a consultant to the NHS and other health and social care services. And I started to train staff, and I would train this addiction staff in all these motivational tools that they could use with their clients.
Mm-hmm.
And what I noticed a lot of the time was that staff were coming up to me and asking me for additional tools, but not for their clients, for them or their husbands or their kids, to say, because they had clocked onto the fact that these motivational tools could be adapted and used for smoking and procrastination and diet.
Mm-hmm.
And they were absolutely right. So that's where it all began, really. That's where I got the idea for these tools that I share with the general population now.
Mm-hmm. I think there was something that you mentioned just at the beginning of when you started to speak about your background there, was that a lot of the time, this is something that I hear a lot in the field of work that I do, is that I hear a lot of people saying, I know what I want to do, but I can't seem to do it. I can't seem to be able to do it. I know what I want, but I don't seem to be able to do it. I don't seem to be able to stick to it. I don't seem to be able to actually put, the words into actions. And when I started to read your book, which we'll talk about a bit later on, it made so much sense to me personally, because like you, I've gone through a bit of a weight loss journey. It's a bit of a cliche of a statement, but there were times where I felt like I was hitting my head off a brick wall, going like, why can't I do this? What is it about me that I thought there was something wrong with me, that I knew exactly what to do, but there were times where I couldn't seem to do it. Is that something that you come up against quite a lot in the work that you do?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much in a nutshell what I do when it comes to helping people lose weight, especially when they come into my room. My therapy room, what I often do is just say, do you know how to lose weight healthily? Mm-hmm. And they'll say yes. Yeah. And I'll say, if I needed, especially the seasoned dieters, if I say, look, at the end of this month, I'll give you 50 grand if you manage to healthily lose weight. Mm-hmm. Would you be able to do it? Every single person says, yes, I know exactly what to do. Mm-hmm. And I would feel great too.
Yeah.
And so, the question then becomes, then why haven't you done it? Then why did you need to come to me? Mm-hmm. And there are various different reasons. One main one, I think, which is a theme that runs through a lot of my work, is that people often focus on what's wrong with what they're doing and what's wrong with them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they'll focus on how weak they are and how weak-willed they are and how they don't have any resilience and how they're different to everyone and they're the exception. And they'll also concentrate on what's bad about being overweight or what's bad about eating in a way that they're not happy with. Mm-hmm. And although it's important to kind of identify why we're changing initially, I think that first of all, we deprive ourselves, when we think about what's bad about our habits, we deprive ourselves of some really important insight that will help us push through when things get hard. And that is, what's good about them? Mm-hmm. How are they serving us? Why have we remained this way? That can help us open up a dialogue of forgiveness and compassion and understanding with ourselves that we otherwise wouldn't have, or otherwise would be beating ourselves with a stick, basically, a lot of us. And so what you can do is realize that it's going to be difficult and appreciate that it will be difficult and put things in place because you've appreciated that you have a relationship with this habit and that there are forces pulling you to stay the same. And a lot of the time when we're so fed up, we can't even imagine that there would be any reason why we wanted to continue to gain weight or continue to stay overweight or continue to eat in the way that we are. Mm-hmm. Very often, I think it helps to kind of be conscious of that. And I think the other thing is looking at, very often people don't feel that they're capable of doing difficult things. And my job is concerned with bringing to their attention all of the things that they've done, which are considerably more difficult than sitting with the discomfort of an initial craving when they change their diets in the pursuit of losing weight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I encourage them to bring that to the forefront of their mind. If I can if I can give birth, if I can, all sorts if I can achieve this at work, if I can hold my tongue when this person is annoying me, then of course I can wait half an hour and go home and eat something that is in line with achieving my long-term weight loss goals.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. When we're talking about weight loss, I know that you have, from listening to a previous podcast that you did, understand that you have a sort of yo-yo dieting background, and you finally overcame this to become sort of happier and healthier, I guess, where you are now. Could you tell the listeners a little bit about your dieting background? I want to sort of instill hope in people that if they are feeling how perhaps you and I felt, say a decade ago, that there is hope to change.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was, oh God, if I can change, I know it's a cliche, but anyone can change. I mean, I spent a lifetime dieting. I was always overweight kid, not happy about it. People gave me a hard time about it. Mm-hmm. I've been trying to lose weight since I was about 11, I'd say. And I've tried everything, literally everything, from super dangerous stuff to, just everything, laxative, juicing, cutting out entire food groups, starving myself, just all sorts, diet pills, boot camps, all sorts. And the thing is, they all worked. I just didn't know. I was just white knuckling it and having a miserable life while I was doing it. And then, and I was always good at losing weight. I've always managed to lose weight, and I always bring this home because right now, a lot of the press that I'm doing, people will say, you've lost 8 stone, and that's absolutely correct. I have lost 8 stone. I have kept it off more easily than I ever have before by using these motivational tools as opposed to concentrating on the food. But the thing is, I've lost more weight than this before, and I've been much slimmer than this before. The issue I had was losing weight in a way that actually boosted my self-esteem in the end, and not just making it a sort of surface thing, because the novelty of being slim wore off very, very quickly, and before I put on all the weight again, because I wasn't doing it from a sort of authentic place or understanding why I was doing it or why it meant anything to me. So yeah, I lost a bunch of weight, and now I have some general guidelines that I stick to, but for the most part, they tend to be very, very general. Like, they're not even specific to food. They tend to be things like, okay, in all the things I do today, in all the decisions I make today, I'm going to behave in a way I'll be proud that I behaved tomorrow, or I'm going to treat my body the way that I would want my mum to treat hers today. And then my food options just tend to fit into those more broad intentions for the day.
Yeah, that makes sense. It sounds like a kind of similar pathway to where I am at the moment as well. What was the hardest change that you have made in your life? Would you say that is one of them, or
I'd say going from being an all or nothing person to being a moderate person.
Yeah.
That was a huge change, and I'm so proud to say that I've managed that, because it was really hard work, and I know a lot of clients don't think that they ever will. And I'm glad to be able to demonstrate that it's absolutely possible. I'd say the other thing is the way that I speak to myself, the conversations that I have with myself. I used to be a real bully and more mean to myself than anyone else, and now it's quite the opposite. I really champion myself. I'm really on my own side. I'm forgiving of myself. I believe in my ability to do difficult things, and I hope to continue to nurture that conversation with myself throughout my life.
Yeah, that's I speak about this to members quite a lot, about the way that we speak to ourselves, because when I was younger, especially like towards the end of high school, I would be, my eyes would only be open for about a minute in the morning, and I'd already like slagged myself off about
Yeah.
10 times without even realising it. And when I look back, I think it's so difficult to make changes when you almost feel like it's not worth doing. Is that something that you see a lot, like when we go back to the I know what to do but I can't seem to stick to it? Is that one of the reasons why we find it so hard to stick to something, or in some cases even get started in the first place?
What, because we don't think it's worth doing?
Yeah. That was something that went through my mind a lot, and it took me a long time to actually realise that, but in my head it was like, well, I'm always going to be like this, so what was the point? And even trying, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm a believer in this kind of statement that is used a lot in addiction treatment, which is that you change when it gets harder to stay the same than to change.
Yeah.
And that has to be on balance, on balance across a range of your life. Like, for example, in my case, it became harder eventually because of the ongoing chatter that I had all day about whether I was being good today or being bad today, or how I looked in the mirror, and whether someone was looking at how big my thighs were on the tube, and the exhaustion of the all day. What am I going to eat? Am I on a diet? Am I not on a diet? Am I going to be good? What if I go out later? What if I go off track? I mean, that exhaustion was enough to make me want to change it, whether or not I lost weight, frankly.
Yeah.
I wanted to turn the volume down on that. A lifetime of just this constant background soundtrack of mean, pointless debate and cruelty. And for me, that was kind of what made it worth it, if you will.
Yeah. That was kind of what I sort of say as being like your enough is enough moment. Like you get to that point where you just think, right, something's got to change, that this is enough now. What was the first thing that you changed when you got to that point?
I didn't really have an enough is enough moment. I'm a believer in that a lot of different things come together eventually, as opposed to like a distinctive rock bottom, largely because I've worked with so many people who've had so many rock bottoms. And I certainly remember when I was losing weight, I'd get on the scale, or when I was gaining weight, I'd get on the scales and I'd think, God, I never thought I'd see that number. And then the feeling of the rock bottom would be enough to propel me to be, good, whatever that meant, for maybe a day, maybe even less, before realization would make me so sad that I would want to eat on it. So in that sense, it wasn't the case for me. But one thing that really did change things for me and propelled things, sped up weight loss almost inadvertently in a way that I'd never imagined, was that I was in counselling at the time, and one day my counsellor said to me, "What if you never lose weight?" And I was really annoyed. I mean, I was really angry. I just thought, who do you think you are? I've come here. Everything I ever do is to lose weight. So you can imagine counselling, I was definitely thinking, I'm going to measure the success of this process with pounds lost.
Yeah.
And then I left the session and I thought on it, and I thought to myself, hold on, what if I don't lose weight? How much of my life am I living on hold, waiting to lose weight before I feel worthy of doing all sorts of things? And I looked around me and I saw people who were overweight, and I didn't think that they were less worthy of treating themselves with kindness or taking, care in their appearance and taking pride in their homes and all these things that I was just neglecting until I was this slim person who did things like that, And so I just decided I was going to start living as though I'd already achieved my goals. And first of all, I realized that there was a lot of stuff that I was associating with being slim that had absolutely nothing to do with being slim.
Right.
And second of all, I started losing weight more quickly and more easily than I ever have before. Because I realized that in my head, a person who's slim was worthy of eating healthy food, was worthy of doing exercise, was worthy of standing up straight and taking pride in their appearance and taking pride in all sorts of things that I didn't before. And as soon as I started doing those things, I started losing weight.
Right. Yeah. When what a couple of things I sort of spoke to a few of my members and asked them what they say that they struggle with the most. And I wanted to sort of get your opinion on the belief of willpower. Because a lot of my members have often believed in the past that they don't have either the willpower or the motivation to succeed. And I just wondered what your thoughts are on willpower. Like what even is willpower, and does it come into making or breaking a habit?
I think in the context of habit change, I see willpower as resilience, an ability to demonstrate that you can push through emotional or physical discomfort in the short term. As part of a desire to achieve more long-term ambitious goals. Yeah. I think that people demonstrate willpower when they can anticipate when they're going to be triggered or they're going to find it difficult to stay on track, when they expect it and they put contingencies in place. So I think a lot of the time when people say she has so much willpower, I would argue what they're saying is that she knows that her willpower is going, or her resilience, or whatever you want to call it, is gonna waver second to second, and she cannot rely on this elusive kind of state. But actually, I'm much more practical in that sense. I think we need to actually think, okay, there will be moments in this process where I will want to throw in the towel. What am I going to do in those moments? Let's presume that they will happen. If I had relied on willpower alone, whatever that is. I mean, I say whatever that is. We know what that is, but obviously, as with many of these terms in psychology, they keep being, different people come at them with different approaches. And if I had relied on a natural state of willpower, I never would have reached my goals. I needed to plan. I needed to assume that there would be moments where my motivation would absolutely plummet. But the next day I would really regret it if I allowed that to be what threw me off track.
Yeah, so having plans in place for days where you're feeling like that, or moments where you're feeling like that.
Yeah, and the thing is, it doesn't even have to be an obvious plan. It doesn't have to be like, go distract yourself with this. It can literally be, just expect it to be hard.
Yeah.
And when it is, think to yourself, I've done hard stuff. This was always going to be hard, especially when we're talking about sugar. I mean, in the short term, we're talking about genuine withdrawal.
Yeah.
So it will be hard. It's about saying, okay, what am I going to tell myself when it is? Am I going to throw in the towel? Am I going to remind myself of these self-limiting core beliefs from childhood, like, oh, I'm just the kind of person who starts things and doesn't finish them, or I don't have any willpower? Or am I going to actually use the knowledge and tools that are available to me and assume that my motivation will waver, and remember that when it comes to self-awareness and resilience, forewarned is very much forearmed.
Yeah, totally agree. Willpower is something that I struggled with, or I thought I struggled with for quite a long time. But now, like yourself, it's just about understanding that it is going to be hard. I think when you've been on and off of a diet for a long, long time, you know that diets work. In the short term, you find that you can stick to it for a few days, and then it all goes pear-shaped again. But when you actually make long-lasting change, it's not something that's like a linear process, and that's where I was, I guess, a bit like you, the sort of all or nothing attitude. I'm either doing it or I'm not, and if I have a bad day, that means that I've failed. Like even if I've had 30 or 40 good days before that one bad moment or afternoon or morning, and then it's like, well, I've just wasted 40 days of making good choices by making one bad choice. And that's something that I struggled with a lot. If someone is listening to this episode at the moment and is maybe where we were years and years ago, and feeling like there's just they don't know what to do, they don't know where to start, but they know they want to make a change, Do you have any advice on where a complete beginner could start? I know that's quite a massive question.
I think there's one thing that's extremely basic that we can start doing, and that is starting to feel good about ourselves in any way we can. I think that is the first starting point for doing anything difficult. And for me, the first step is essentially making a list of what I'm good at, what I've achieved, what I'm proud of myself for. I think that really gives people actually a great boost, and starts them thinking, okay, this is possible for me.
Yeah,
this is possible. Before you have to do anything with food and exercise, and don't put yourself in that state of panic of, oh gosh, everything's going to change. I remember I used to have so many Sunday night binges last
gosh, me too.
Yeah, it was just like, then I'd wake up in the morning with heartburn and acid reflux, just gross, just feeling really like hungover from food, which would obviously put me on a back foot. And it was just such an aggressive way of doing it to myself. Whereas when I started saying, okay, don't worry about the food for now. What are you good at? What do you like about yourself? And you start feeling more positive. What are you grateful for? All these things that we know start to make us look at what's strong as opposed to what's wrong. And so I would say start by doing that. And then start by thinking about comparing how you'll feel in 6 months if you make changes with how you'll feel in 6 months if you don't. Look at your calendar. Look what's going to happen between now and the 6-month mark. Events, holidays. For me, for example, it would be, okay, the summer's coming and I really, really want to wear tops that I feel comfortable in, for example. And I know that if I was only ever losing or gaining weight. I never knew how to maintain my weight. And so that exercise helped bring that urgency about, as opposed to keep having that Monday mentality for me.
Yeah.
I'd also say, please try to appreciate that you're worthy of enjoying your life regardless of your weight. It's almost a trick that helps you lose weight.
Yeah.
When you realize, I can enjoy my day, I can enjoy my life, I can like my body, I can do all these things. Listen, you can enjoy it more. There's more ways to like your body, all of that. But start from a place of not beating yourself up, because so many of us use food as a comfort. And what you want to do during this process, especially at the beginning, is reduce the amount of comforting you require so that you're less at risk. Yeah. So if you're feeling good and you're feeling strong and you're feeling capable in other areas of your life, then you're likely to reduce the number of opportunities you have to go off track with a plan of change.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't. That actually made me feel a bit emotional there when you said that, because when I think back of how many years of my life that I don't like to use the word wasted, but spent thinking, if only I could insert goal weight, then I would be insert happiness.
Yeah.
And I know that there are a lot of people listening to this, and I know that who feel the same way. If only I could be this weight, then I would feel happy. But being able to understand that you are, like, your weight and the number on your bathroom scales in the morning is not a dictator of who you are as a person, and what strengths that you have in all areas of your life. And that's where, when I read your book, which I think we can talk about now, The Kindness Method, it was almost like, I wish I had read this book 5 years ago. So let's have a quick chat before we wrap up about your book, The Kindness Method. Can you tell me about your book, who it's for, and how it can help with making any sort of lifestyle changes, whether that be with your weight or otherwise?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. My book is called The Kindness Method. It is a book filled with exercises that I guide people through, designed to help them build their self-esteem, build their self-belief, build their self-awareness, and help them to plan really well for making any change that they want in their habits. And whether the habit is around food, or the habit is simply beating yourself up internally, not simply, but you know what I mean, not a practical change.
Yeah.
Or procrastination or smoking, it doesn't matter what it is, because I believe that when we believe in ourselves and we plan well and we have basic motivational evidence-based tools, we can make any change we like by ourselves without handing ourselves over to some expert, because we're experts by experience. We're the authority on ourselves and what will work for us, especially us women who are, and men who are seasoned dieters. Mm-hmm. We know what will work. We know. It's just we need a framework to follow. And so that's what I have provided with the kindness method, is a framework in which you can fit in whatever diet you decide to use, or whatever road you want to go down. There's no judgment. There's no telling you what your goals should be. I mean, strictly speaking, you could use the same framework to gain weight. You know, whatever you want to do, it helps you plan it, and it helps you feel worthy and capable of achieving it. And that was my ambition with the kindness method. It was the kind of book I wish I had earlier in my life. That was my intention, to write that. Mm-hmm.
No, it's incredible. I really would encourage anyone who is listening to give it a read. I started with the audio version and then decided to get the paper version. And it's amazing. I guess we can wrap up by saying, asking, if anyone wants to find out more about what you do, your book and things like that, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
My website, ShahrooIzadi.com, or actually on Instagram, Shahroo Izadi, and on Twitter, always Shahroo Izadi. Yeah. So very easy to find in that sense. And I've learned Instagram now, so I'm on there as well.
Oh, that's fab. I'll make sure that I link all of these in the podcast show notes. So if you're listening and you want to go ahead and grab a copy of the kindness method, if you just scroll down on the whichever device that you're listening to right now, you'll see the show notes, and there'll be some links there for you to click to find out more. Shahroo, thank you so much for your time today. I know that time is of the essence for you, I'm sure. So I really appreciate it a lot. Thank you so much. I don't know about you, but I thoroughly enjoyed that interview with Shahroo. Thank you so much again for joining me. If you would like to find out more about the kindness method, I highly recommend that you just scroll down on whichever device that you are on right now, look at the show notes and click on the link to go and order this book. Honestly, if you do one thing for yourself this week, please order this book. It really is amazing. I have read it twice, and it's just an incredibly practical guide that teaches you how to feel worthy enough to make the changes that you really want to make, and ultimately actually make them, and make long-term changes. And that's what we're all about here at Ditch the Diet. Speaking of Ditch the Diet, we are now open again for new members. If you would like to join the Ditch the Diet Academy, we have 6 months worth of online courses, self-paced online courses that you can go through that teach everything from habit change, like you've just listened to nutrition coaching. We have sample meal plans. We talk about exercise. We talk about mindfulness. We talk about long-term habit change, and everything is in a step-by-step way. Not only that, but you also have as part of your membership access to a one-to-one mentor to help keep you motivated and accountable. We have live coaching once a week. We have recipes, we have recipe videos, we have cookery demonstrations coming up, and we also have a membership community platform as well. We will make sure that the changes that you want to make actually happen. So if you'd like to find out more and join the Academy, just go to ditchthedietacademy.com/join to find out more. Thank you very much for listening to another episode of the podcast. I will be back next Thursday with another ep for you to listen to. Thanks again. Have a great day.